Hey everybody, this is Athletes and Antiquities, and in today's video, we're going to be asking the question, does the mantra, older, rarer, minter, better, still matter to collectors? So I'm asking this question today, does the mantra, older, rarer, minter, better, still matter to collectors? I'm gonna give you my opinion on it, but I'd love for you to go into the comments, let me know why you agree, let me know why you disagree, tell me why I'm wrong. I'd love to hear just some discourse on this topic. So if you haven't heard it before, a very famous collector, Scott S.M. Pratt, has this mantra that kind of caught on in the hobby, older, rarer, minter, better. And kind of what he means by that is that's a good rule of thumb to determine what's gonna hold value in the hobby. And I think that mantra is very effective at like a long-term price trajectory of a card. Like, oh, if a card is very common, even if it's popular, if it's extremely common, it's not going to really increase in value much. A card like, Ancient Mew could apply to that, where it's like one of the most famous cards in the hobby, but everyone has one, so it doesn't have value. I think his mantra of older, rarer, minter, better is very important for that long-term value. But what I'm going to talk about today is what collectors actually care about. Because I think those two things are different. I think one card can be more beloved by collectors and completely bypass the older, rarer, minter. It still won't have as much value as like a trophy card or something, but it's more cherished by the hobby. That's what I want to talk about today, because my argument is pretty much in the eyes of a collector who's not looking to resell an item, older, rarer, minter, better doesn't really apply. Again, this is for a collector who is not planning on selling down the line. It's just, what cards do I want? And it seems to be that, at least currently, that people tend to not chase after rarity to the extent that I see in other hobbies that I'm into. I'm into old like posters and collectible newspapers, rare books, stuff like that. When I say I'm into them very minimally, I'm not like some heavy hitter in these categories, because a lot of those are very expensive hobbies. But I feel like the average collector in Pokemon isn't, that they don't care about rarity as much as one might think. And you might look at that and say, well, that's not true, because things like things like alternate arts hold an extreme premium. Like things like, the Moonbryon, the little Moonbryon counter. How fast into the video did I mention Moonbryon? Like things like Moonbryon, be like, oh, well, that's a very rare card. So obviously it has more value, and it's rare in the sense of its set, but in the sense of the hobby as a whole, it's a fairly common card. But people don't really care about that. They don't care how rare it is in absolute terms, just because they love the card, and that's okay. So a lot of the cards I collect happen to fall under that older, rarer, minter, better mantra. I'm not like getting trophy cards, but like a lot of the cards you see up here, I would consider them old. They're all mint, and for the most part, they are rare compared to your average set card today. Like this is a promo card in a PSA 9. It's a promo, so it's not like we're talking something crazy here, but it's a difficult card to get in a 9. The Absol in the middle there, it's a very low pop, very niche Japanese card. By today's standards, it is old. It is rare in terms of its population that people have graded. Maybe there's a large supply of raw cards that I just don't know about, but for the most part, it's a fairly rare card. It is mint, but is it better? And in terms of value, maybe it might have a premium because there's so few out there. But at the same time, people don't really care about it that much. So I don't think older, rarer, minter, better will really apply to something like this. And where I'm going with this is, like, you could look at a card like that Absol, or another card that might fall into that category. This is old, it's rare, it's mint, it's a very low pop card. I think it's in the double digits. I'll put that on screen. But if I compare that, if I put this card on screen, you're like, yeah, that's all right, it's pretty cool. And then I put this card on screen, suddenly oldness and rarity don't matter. Because for a collector, I'm not talking about value, I'm purely talking about what a collector might desire. When I put that card next to this Deoxys, it becomes very clear which one you're gonna pick, and I would pick that one too, honestly, for something that I want to display, show my friends. A better example is another Deoxys card, you know? Put that off to the side, you know, you see that Deoxys, yeah, it's pretty cool, and now I'll show you this Deoxys. It's newer, it's much less rare. I mean, I guess it's still mint, but like it's a new card, so that value doesn't really add any value. According to that mantra, you know, this wouldn't be as desirable. But in terms of just what a collector might want into their collection, I think a card like this shows why older, rarer minter, it doesn't matter as much. You know, if this is an investment, then yes, older, rarer, minter better is absolutely important. I do want to make that clear. I want to make a very clear distinction here between collecting and investing. This is a collecting discussion. And I've noticed it too. There's a lot of cards that I'll look at an older, a rarer, a minter card. Let's say it costs $100. But then I see a modern card that's printed to oblivion. It's not rare at all. It's not old. But you know, it's $40 or whatever. And I'm like, it's maybe 100 times as common and it's half the price. So on paper that would be a bad deal, but like modern cards are just so polished and nice looking that it's like the older, rarer, minter better kind of falls away for me in those situations. You know, I'm showing V-Star Universe because it's one of my favorite sets ever made, but you can really apply this to a lot of the things that have been made in the past few years, and I think you see it across the hobby too, where people will look at those old sets and they don't pay as much attention to it as someone like me who has a lot of them might hope. You know, like, oh, I love Neo, I love EX Era. I hope more people do enjoy EX Era. Like, I think a card like this Rayquaza here is a breathtaking card. It's one of my favorite arts in the whole hobby, but it doesn't get that attention just because it doesn't really pop out at you compared to something like a modern full art. And I'm not saying this needs to change. I'm not trying to say, oh, this is undervalued because people care about modern more. No, I'm just trying to say that in my opinion, the modern collector doesn't focus on rarity or age or anything like that when just what card do I want to put on my desk to display. You know, if you're trying to invest, yeah, first edition base is a pretty safe investment. It's probably a much safer investment than something like this, like obviously. But for the average collector, I do think it matters less, and that's why we're seeing almost like a price stagnation with the not ultra premium vintage cards. Like we're talking like Japanese WotC 9s and stuff like that, where they're desirable, they're somewhat rare compared to modern cards. They were the heavy hitters of their era, but they just don't pop, so collectors just aren't caring about it as much as I would think. And I just want to, like, what are your thoughts on that? Do you see what I'm seeing, or do you disagree? That's totally fine. I'd love to hear it. If you think that, you know, older, rarer, minter better is a pretty bulletproof rule, whether it comes to investing or collecting, that's a very fair opinion. But just from what I've seen, you know, the average collector, if I show you these two cards, they're gonna pick this one, even though every statistic that you could pull would make the Rayquaza more desirable. And again, that's okay. Like, that's totally fine. This Deoxys is an amazing looking card. It doesn't matter to me that it's not rare, which is why I got it slabbed. I didn't get it slabbed to sell. I got it slabbed because I love this card. So, I mean, I fall into that category to some extent as well. But what do you guys think about that? Do you think about older, rarer, minter better when buying a card? Or is that more of an afterthought? You look at the card first, you say, oh, I like it, now let's see how rare it is. Or do you say, I want a rare card in my collection? And like, how do you go about that? Do you think about that at all? Or do you just not care? If you're not looking to resell, do you pay any attention to to how stable that card might be in the future years? Love to hear your thoughts on this. Again, this was a quick video. Let me know what you think. Thanks.